A good afternoon, good day to everyone. I will summarize what we have made on day 2 and day 1. I'm the policy program officer, not the committee. Yes, just for a while, I share my screen. Okay, the information provided by our speakers on day 2 include the RPOA IUU, Ocean Mine, International Mcs Network, and NOAA. Also, I will present you the summary of fundamental elements for eliminating IUU phishing. Also, my presentation this afternoon include way forward and discussion on based on our presentations yesterday and the day before. IUU phishing is one of the major threats that undermines measures towards sustainable utilization of fishery resources. The value presented by our colleague is that the IUU phishing worldwide estimated to be $22 billion. And there are several global instruments that are targeted at combating IUU phishing. And the implementation of these instruments at global level are being progressed by many countries in Southeast Asia, such as Sustainable Development Goal 14, especially targets 14.2 and 14.6 that concerning with the IUU phishing. For example, 1982 UNCLOS, 1993 Compliance Agreements, 1995 UNSFA, 1995 Code of Conduct on Responsible Fisheries, 2001, very important, International Plan of Action on IUU, 2005 Rome Declaration, 2009 PSM Agreement, and later on in the year 2014, Voluntary Guideline on Flag State Performance, and 2017 Global Record, and 2017 again Voluntary Guideline on Catch Documentation Scheme of FAO, and recently 2018 Voluntary Guideline on Marking of Fishing Gears. To combat IUU phishing, it is relying on the responsibilities of flag states, port states, coastal states, and market states. Also, there is a need to have a close collaboration among these flag state, port state, coastal state, and market states, especially information exchange and sharing of information in order to ensure effective underlying of their responsibilities. For FAO, FAO has already established global information exchange or sharing platforms, namely PSMA apps. For your information, these apps will be used as the platform for sharing information on designated ports and national contact points of the program. Global record for the vessels size over 24 meters in length, and vessel from 18 and 24 meters in length, and the vessel less than or smaller than 18 meters in length. But those global record of FAO required the data set of the vessel which has already IMO number. Next, it is the capacity development for sharing information on various capacity development programs extended by different organizations and donors to the country. And also FAO has the plan to establish global information exchange systems to support implementation of port state measures. This is still under development. In the future, database including global record and global information exchange system would be linked in order to support combating IUU phishing for the countries. To combat IUU phishing, it requires strong political will, including for the countries to establish legal frameworks and mechanisms to support their responsibilities of flag state, port state, and coastal states, as well as in establishing the sufficient allocation of capacity and resources for appropriate action. Regarding IFMOs adopted a number of conservation and management measures to combat IUU fishing. And there are a number of ASEAN member states that members to these IFMOs, such as IOTC, WCPF, CCSBG, COFA, and others. ASEAN member states also the members to relevant arrangements, including FAO AFIC and RPOA IUU. Regarding the presentation made by EU, European Union, the European Union plays roles as one of the important market states that issue regulations to ensure the full traceability of all marine fishery products traded into EU countries. And products from IUU fishing activity would not be imported to EU based on the scheme. These are undertaken through, for example, catch certification scheme or paper-based system, implementing since 2010. The upcoming scheme is IT Catch, presented by EU, electronic traceability system, targeted to be complete in 2021. Although a paper-based system is still accepted in the future by EU, and it will not be mandatory for the third party of the countries, including ASEAN member states, in order to apply IT Catch, but the IT Catch will facilitate the export procedure and it will prevent the fish and fishery products from IUU fishing activity in the future. Noting that many countries in the world already established their own respective catch documentation scheme, in the future, if the data used in their respective catch documentation scheme are based on international standard or IT languages, those catch documentation schemes would compatible and can be linked with this IT catch of EU. EU also established a bilateral dialogue with some of the ASEAN member states, including those are in IUU compliance and non-compliance countries toward combating IUU fishing. However, it is necessary for ASEAN member states to enhance regional integration and action as single entity of ASEAN. Toward this, EU through eReady is supporting ASEAN dialogue for the establishment of ASEAN General Fisheries Policy, and the ASEAN IUU network is ongoing activities under ASEAN mechanism. Also, our speaker from International MCS Network, this network established since 2001. IMCS network has been working toward international cooperation on MCS and raise awareness on MCS issues. Their activities include information exchange and collaborative arrangement on MCS activities among members. ASEAN member states that the IMCS network includes Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. Important activities of IMCS network also include capacity building on MCS and fisheries enforcement, exchange of equipment and expertise, giving award on stop IUU fishing, and also registration of MCS experts under IMCS network arrangement that could be mobilized and to be used in the future for relevant fishing capacity building activities of the countries. Also, we have a speaker from NOAA. She's also joining us today. NOAA supports to combat IUU fishing in Southeast Asia, focusing on the support on the implementation of the port state measure agreements, including, for example, development of PSMA inspector training program, and curriculum on PSMA implementation for high-level officers and fisheries managers. Also promoting institutionalizing of the PSMA inspector curriculum within each nation competencies. Also, activities of NOAA on development of legal and policy frameworks to support PSMA implementation by the countries. Also, the other training activities of NOAA, including IUU fishing investigations and complementary activities to combat IUU fishing. Also including crime associated with IUU fishing activities. And also our teleseminar noting on the situation of COVID-19 impact that brought further challenges for us and all countries in the world, including ASEAN member state efforts in combating IUU fishing. As COVID-19 has resulted in drastic economic crisis for countries all over the world, there is a need to balance the need to fight against IUU fishing in order to achieve sustainable fisheries development, while also we have to consider recover from the impacts of COVID-19 and economic crisis. Regarding the sharing initiatives for the ASEAN region, ASEAN member states that already adopted their own respective national plan of action on IUU fishing includes Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. Also, ASEAN member states that are parties to the PSM agreements include Cambodia, Indonesia, Myanmar, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. Under ASEAN mechanism, ASEAN member states having continued dialogue on establishment of the regional fisheries policy, as I mentioned earlier, ASEAN General Fisheries Policy and the network of ASEAN on IUU still ongoing. This is also with the support of EU through the E-Ready program. For your information, SEAFDEC has over the years developed regional policy frameworks for combating IUU fishing, including IUU guidelines for preventing the entry of fish and fishery products from IUU fishing activities into the supply chain. SEAFDEC also developed in close consultation with ASEAN member states on several regional tools and platforms for combating IUU fishing, including electronic format of ASEAN catch documentation scheme, regional fishing vessel record, a dataset on fishing vessel provided by ASEAN member states, regional cooperation on implementation of post-state measures and other relevant initiatives, including collaboration with RPOA IUU and other relevant partners. Our speaker from RPOA IUU presented a number of activities, which is the regional collaborative framework to promote responsible fishing practices, including prevent, deter, and eliminate IUU fishing in the region. ASEAN member states that are RPOA IUU members, including Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. However, the RPOA IUU members doesn't have full coverage of ASEAN countries, as they are not including Laos, PDR, and Myanmar. The RPOA IUU developed their own draft, we call RPOA IUU vessel watch list since 2012. They have their own definition mechanism for listing and delisting of the vessel in the list of RPOA under RPOA IUU program. The IUU fishing vessel data and information were reported from their member countries, organizations, and partners to the RPOA IUU Secretariat in order to further request the relevant participating countries to take appropriate actions. We found that, however, in the website, only summary information on actions taken by the countries on the vessel provided. But details are very confidential and only provided to the member countries. Yesterday, we have our colleague from Ocean Mind. Ocean Mind has also been implementing activities to support some of ASEAN member states including Philippines and Thailand, to apply solutions for combating IUU phishing. For example, the use of remote sensing data from satellite in order to identify vessels and type of activities, behavior of fishing vessels. Then match those information with the regulations applying in particular area in order to see if whether the vessels do not comply with the regulations of the country. Such information will be transformed into the artificial intelligence later. She presented the developments of OceanMind on the machine learning, aiming to reduce the burden of manual monitoring, considering the large number of fishing vessels and diverse fisheries regulations. The machine was input and computerized to learn how to identify certain activities and layers such management regulations in the area to determine the compliance and from the pattern of the activities of the vessel. With that data set, the machine will alert when suspicious activities occur, and also the machine will suggest actions to be taken. PSM analysis tool of OceanMind, aiming to conduct pre-arrival risk assessment by comparing observed data from tracking system of the vessel, compiling with other information reported by the vessels, and used as the indicators of non-compliance before the vessel arrival at port. The teleseminar noted that PSM analysis not only help detect illegal fishing, but it also help in terms of unreported fishing activities as well as unregulated fishing in high seas. Now come to the fundamental elements for eliminate IUU fishing. We gather from our speakers of yesterday and the day before. The first one, political will and commitments. This is very important. There is a need to have a strong political will, which is very important for each country to combat IUU fishing, particularly in establishment of necessary legal frameworks and mechanisms for combating IUU fishing, and also appropriate allocation of necessary resources to deal with the issues. Cooperation and collaboration. Each country could not work alone. We found a number of speakers on this matter. So collaboration and cooperation among countries are necessary. For example, exchange of information among flag states, coastal states, and port states, and market states. The next element is transparency on sharing of the national plans and strategies among countries in order to ensure effectiveness of the IUU fishing combat IUU fishing measures. The issues on law enforcement in order to ensure monitoring of the compliance mechanism for results from detection of IUU fishing activity to have actions, including sanctions to discourage IUU fishing, but penalties should be reasonable and comparable among countries in the region, for example. Lastly, the capacity development. It requires need assessment in order to have proper capacity building program and to translate capacity building program into actual implementation phase. This slide showing the way forward for Southeast Asia at national level. The first one, strengthening countries' capacity in undertaking of flag state, coastal state, and port state responsibilities, as well as market-related measures for combating IUU fishing. Applying multiple tools, we heard from a number of speakers, for effective MCS programs, including the use of remote sensing and in artificial intelligence to alert possible IUU fishing activities of the vessel, and also to conduct risk assessments before the vessel entering to the port. Enhancement of the effective implementation of PSM, PSMA, or the implementation of the with implementation protocol. Definition of designated ports are also necessary. Interagency cooperation coordination with relevant countries are required. Also, the developments and improvements of national traceability system is needed. Enhancing cooperation, collaboration, including multinational engagement in investigation of IUU phishing. Also, public-private partnership in combating IUU phishing. My last slide, the way forward for Southeast Asia at regional level. The first is strengthen global and regional information exchange, including linking regional system, such as regional phishing vessel record of SEAFDEC with the global system for combating IUU phishing. For example, PSMA information exchange system and platforms, global record of FAO. Second is collaboration between organizations in the region for information exchange should be enhanced, including linking RPOA IUU watch list with the SEAFDEC regional phishing vessel record, aiming or targeting to enhance reporting of IUU phishing activities that occur in the region. Also, there is a need to move toward online reporting of information real time by respective countries. The next, further harmonizing the system, for example, electronic ASEAN cache documentation with importers' requirements or paper-based and electronic form, including IT cache of EU, and moving towards ensuring compatibility and linking of data in the future are required. Last but not least, continuing dialogue on establishment of ASEAN policies, ASEAN General Fisheries Policy, and network of ASEAN on IUU fishing. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my summary of presentation made during day 1 and day 2. I stop sharing the screen now. Unfortunately, we have, okay, I really lucky I saw Dr. Kato, the moderator of day 1, and I saw also Mr. Isala, the moderator of day 2. First of all, I think I'd like to invite both of them in whether if they have any additional information based on the sessions, day 1 and day 2. If there is or there, please, Dr. Kato and Mr. Isala, if you have any additional information or comments or suggestion.
Can I thank Dr. Warabit? May I?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Well, during last 2 days session, and many international organizations and presented, and we learned many bilateral workshop and help, and but I think we haven't really exchanging the knowledge of each country's expertise. So our speaker said we need to summarize all information and all fisheries instrument we have so far in our region, and some country must be advanced compared to the other, and we can even just exchange those information will facilitate combating IUU fishing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kato. I think that issue is very, very interesting and useful for the region. As Dr. Kato mentioned, we have a number of national, international instruments to combat IUU fishing. Rather, we hear only speakers from international regional organizations. We better in the future, if we have a chance to conduct future webinar on IUU fishing, we may hear experience and knowledge from from the countries in implementing such instruments at national level, right? Good. Isala, I think you have some comments.
Thank you, Dr. Warwick. I think you capture almost important point of the first day and the second day. I just would like to add up very small observation that from my observe yesterday, our colleague Dr. Matthew mentioned IUU fishing is not only for commercial scale and large scale. It including with the small scale fishing operate in coastal also, and we may need to mention on it as well as to apply apply the approach to deal with IUU fishing in small scale coastal, and in fact it is maybe have IUU fishing in inland fishery, and one of the observation is if we mention unreported and unregulated, mostly of us dealing with the illegal fishing. We may need to more focus on unreported and unregulated as well. This is a really short observation from me. Thank you, Dr. Warwick.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Isala. I saw also our speaker of day 2 and day 1 attending as the panelist of today's teleseminar. Based on my summary, I would like to request maybe by alphabet. I saw Dr. Kathleen, she's on. If you please kindly give us additional information if you have a qualification or correction if you have. Dr. Kathleen, are you here?
I am. Good morning and thank you, Dr. Warwick. I think that our moderators have covered it well. I think the conversations over the last 2 days have been very productive, and the emphasis of taking actions and effective actions and all working together and collaborating and not keeping things at the discussion level have been the main take homes. And I'm pleased to see that come through the recap. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kathleen. Very kind of you joining us during the late at night for 2-3 days. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, and I saw our resource person or speaker on day 1, Dr. Matthew. You are here with us. Can you give us more elaboration or what kind of missing information that I have so far?
Yes, hello again. It's a pleasure to reconvene today to wrap up. I think that you have covered it very well. I think we have touched upon all different angles and dimensions that are applicable to combating IUU fishing in the region. I'm pleased to see that my message that was transmitted well yesterday, also in writing, that we should, and this is particularly relevant to Southeast Asia, to not only focus on the illegal part, but the unregulated and unreported, and to consider all vessels. Now, when we emphasize that it's not only about the port state measures, which of course is a very important tool that is promising to combat IUU fishing, we need to upgrade and improve the flag state responsibilities. And flag state responsibilities are really about regulating fisheries. So many times there are no fishing regulations in place for certain fishing operations. Perhaps there are regulations in place for the long distance fleets, for those fishing on the high seas, for tuna, because they are part of the regional fishery management organization. So that fishery is regulated. But perhaps sometimes closer to home, in coastal waters, in the region, there are no regulations for certain types of fisheries. Now, perhaps I'm referring to demersal fish stocks and small pelagic fish, which are certainly, without going into the biological details, shared stocks in the region. Your region is very particular. You have very little high seas. If you just look at Southeast Asia, you're flanked by big oceans, the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. The fisheries there on the high seas are regulated by WCPFC, IOTC, etc. But in the closer region, in the Southeast Asian region per se, you've got so many other fish species that perhaps are unregulated fisheries. And this calls for cooperation in developing fisheries management plans, fisheries monitoring plans, stock assessment programs in coordination with each other. This is what we mean by unregulated fishing. You know, it's not something criminal. It is something which is a bad practice. The Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries, which this year is its 25th anniversary, still relevant to today, calls upon states to monitor the fisheries and ensure sustainability. This is what it is. Of course, if one goes fishing and catches a small, undersized, immature fish, it's not illegal if there's no regulation, but it is not good practice. And this is a flag state responsibility. So therefore, this is something that I think is very applicable to Southeast Asia, which needs to be seen. The reporting part is equally important, because without reporting, you don't know how much catch is taken, how much fish is being taken out of that stock. You need that for your scientific monitoring. You need that to monitor sustainability. So this is why we are emphasizing this, the U and the U are equally important, if not more important, than combating just the illegal part, which sometimes, and I reiterate this, sometimes does venture into, yes, organized crime, because it could be that illegal fishing gets so complex and it is well organized in that sense, and it plays a big part in undermining sustainable fisheries efforts by all countries. So this is my my message, that this, I think, needs to be addressed, in particular in Southeast Asia. There are mechanisms for the high seas fisheries, for the tuna, through the RFMOs. I think that the engagement of Southeast Asian countries in these RFMOs is very good. But I think one needs to also look closer to home and to address this other dimension. I also see very much the importance that you have put to the information exchange at regional level, at international level. And I would say that, yes, there should be more of encouragement for countries which have not become parties to the international agreements to do so. There are things that they are probably already doing, which are included in the international agreements. But it's important to show full commitment to that. And the information exchange. You have a fantastic setup there, promoting information exchange through SEAFDEC, through RPOA IUU, through other mechanisms you have in place. But it would be incredibly important to also submit at international level. Fisheries has no boundaries. Vessels are going from one side of the world to another. It is important that there is traceability throughout. And I think that the fact that you have so many good initiatives there in Southeast Asia would place the countries in a better position to be able to fulfill the data exchange requirements at international level. And why not? Why there is an opportunity, since you have regional mechanisms in place, for Southeast Asia to shine in the international arena. So at the next FAO COFI session, for example, I would like to see that SEAFDEC countries would be amongst the best in their data submission and compliance or commitment to international agreements within that forum. So with that, I close my. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Matthew. I think your statements are very well noted by our section, Madam Malini. Of course, I think after COVID disappear, we can meet and chat a little bit in detail. And the issues that you mentioned on the elements, we are focusing very much on illegal, but not that much on unreported and unregulated. That is I think one of the way forward that Southeast Asian region may have a look on that, and we can encourage further the arrangement of the, I don't know whether a regional or sub-regional kind of collaboration in the countries. As you observe, we have initiative in Andaman Sea, in Gulf of Thailand, Sulu, Sulawesi, and even the Mekong River Basin. A number of sub-regional collaboration arrangement can be used as an approach to further effective implementation of collaboration, effective of issues, measures combating IUU fishing for the region. Yes, just one question. I observed you mentioned during your presentation to link the global system of information exchange platform with region kind of initiative. What is the detail a little bit? Can you elaborate more? Where should be the starting point, or when should be appropriate, or how can we start?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. Very relevant. Yes, well, with the global record, you know, it has already been launched. We are in the process, as I said in my presentation, of launching version 2, and we hope that we can establish. So far, it has been just uploading from flag states. But we hope that with the new version, and we have been working closely with the European Union on this technology for transferring data called Flux, it would be a protocol that would be able to link two databases together and update in real time. Now, we will be calling upon, and I've said this in the past during other meetings with SEAFDEC, we will be looking for partners for testing this direct information exchange, and definitely SEAFDEC would be one partner that we will be asking to help and partner in this testing phase. There has been, as you know, we had in fact a kind of, not joint, but we arranged to have a back-to-back meeting last year with our Global Information Exchange workshop, and we invited the SEAFDEC countries to come over, and you had your own regional fisheries vessel register meeting there. And we're making sure that the regional system that SEAFDEC has all the standards, all the field data standards, the data field standards, according to the international standards that we use in our system. Then for the GIES, the Global Information Exchange System for PSMA, that is still under construction. The prototype will be open at the end of the year, and we will also be looking for testing partners. RFMOs and states which already have systems for recording port state measures, inspection results, and reports. So in summary, of course, we don't have time to go into the technical details here, but I reiterate that these global systems will be built to be as flexible as possible. So countries can upload directly or choose to import their own data from regional systems which already exist, whether it is an RFMO one for port state measures, for example, or for vessel information. So there will be different options, and not only one, you can use different ones. So you may use the IOTC PSMA system to import information about vessels that form part of the IOTC framework. But then clearly, if you have a fishing vessel entering your port that does not form part of any RFMO, then you will be free also to use your own manual upload. So this is, it's encouraging to see that we would be able to work with colleagues there in the region to make sure that this will not just be imposed, it will be built with the parties, with the members, with the regions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Matthew. I think very interesting program in the future. We are looking forward to collaborate with you and other partners on this initiative. I saw the one who stay very far away, also to another continent in Scotland. Natalie, you are here. So can you, Natalie? Hello.
Sawadee ka.
Sawadee ka. Yes, nice to see you here again. In addition to what I presented, I think maybe I missed something from my presentation. Can you please, in case some of attendees are not yesterday listen to our teleseminar? Yes, please.
Sure. I don't think you missed anything, Dr. Warwick. I think I was really pleased to see that you emphasised the importance of political will, because I think in Southeast Asia especially, where there has been political will, there's been transformational change in a very short space of time to combat IUU fishing. So I think that's a great success for some of the nations in Southeast Asia region. As I spoke about yesterday, technology or some of the technologies are becoming much more effective and a lot more affordable. And I'd like to emphasize and pick up on Dr. Match's point about the ability to monitor more of the smaller scale and domestic fleets, because IUU fishing is not all about the high seas, large scale vessels. And so as we're seeing new monitoring technologies become available that are basically self-contained units that can utilize the mobile network, GSM networks. And these are much more affordable than traditional monitoring units such as VMS. So there's less of a barrier to entry to be able to monitor these smaller scale vessels. And so I foresee the use of this type of technology in combination with others and in combination with capacity building and effective regulations for this to be a game changer to be able to monitor these smaller scale fisheries. I think it's also worth pointing out that sustainability is a key component. It doesn't matter if you're enforcing regulations that aren't sustainable. So really the management measures in place are a key component, and then the enforcement and monitoring, control and surveillance elements should enforce those sustainable practices. So that's a key element. And then finally, on your point about some of the traceability elements and the catch certificates, I also think it's important to include verification in the process of transparency to prevent the garbage in, garbage out conundrum. So I'd like to end on that point, and thank you very much for having this fantastic teleseminar. It's been a pleasure to join it. Khop khun ka.
Yes, thank you, Natalie. Just my personal question. I would like to hear from you if you have information as we have faced the difficulties in our life from the COVID-19. Based on your initiative, is that when you monitor the risk fishing vessel at sea, is there any changes under this condition of COVID, or just similar to before COVID? Or what kind of condition can you share?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question, and it also highlights the use of some of the remote sensing technologies that I discussed yesterday, because even though COVID has sort of grounded a lot of elements, we have still been able to monitor vessels at sea, and actually we haven't been impacted in the way that sort of other more traditional MCS tools have been impacted. We have seen a decrease globally of fishing effort during the pandemic, partly fishing vessels being required to go back to their flag states. Interestingly, some of the transshipment regulations for requirements in port have changed, because some nations were no longer allowing transshipments in port to take place in the port area. It would have to be outside, and that raises concerns for a reduction in the ability to monitor those at sea transshipments. So that's one of the risks that we've identified, but also that there are still plenty of vessels that are operating. And a concern globally is that with a reduction in FMC staffing, in a reduction in monitoring, it would enable bad practice and suspicious activities to take place, because there's a reduction potentially in enforcement mechanisms during this situation.
Okay. Oh, wow, very fantastic information. Thank you. I think if I recall 2 months ago, we had the webinar on the impact of COVID on fisheries and aquaculture organized by SEAFDEC. Maybe we have a second webinar on impact of COVID-19 in Southeast Asia on fisheries and aquaculture. And you may be our potential resource speaker.
That would be great. There's really some fascinating analysis being done in terms of fishing effort and port calls. So I think a webinar on that topic would be fascinating. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Let me see who else in the panel. Mr. Gary, yes, our colleague. Yes, how are you today?
Good evening. Very well, thank you. And I'd like to echo Natalie's comments and thank you for the opportunity to participating in the webinar. It's been fascinating, and the quality of my fellow panelists' presentations has all been enlightening as always. I'd like to just reinforce what Matthew said in terms of flag state responsibility and take it down to the next level and talk about the control of nationals. And I think that's particularly important with flag states, that they have robust systems in place to control their nationals. One of the things that we learned through the operation against the Southern Ocean IUU fleet was that we could bring pressure to bear on the flag states that these nationals belong to through diplomatic channels. So not everything can be addressed in IUU through law enforcement or through using your taxation regime and that sort of thing. The diplomacy is a very powerful tool as well, and it can be brought to bear against governments that have weak control of nationals regimes. The other side of it too is that coastal states need to look carefully at their regulatory environment and ensure that their legislation is fit for purpose, that when they are trying to control the activity that happens within their area of responsibility, they have the appropriate legislative tools to do so. It's nothing more frustrating for a frontline law enforcement person to be seeing something and not have the necessary regulatory tools to do anything about it. And even if you can do something about it, you need to have that supported by a robust judicial system that will impose appropriate penalties and deter people from exploiting the systems, the regulatory environment. Again, reinforcing what I said yesterday and reinforcing what Matthew said, everybody talks about the illegal part of it. We know from Pacific studies that the unregulated and unreported activity has the greatest impact on sustainability of fisheries. And we, it's very high profile. It gets a lot of immediate attention when you talk about illegal fishing vessels. The other stuff is not so interesting to politicians or to media, but it is the stuff that makes a difference to our fisheries in the long term. So if we put a lot of effort and work into addressing the unregulated fishing, the unreported fishing, then I think we will have a far better world in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your message. I think the unreported and unregulated parts will be one of the future actions that I think SEAFDEC and collaborative partners, including not only FAO but also the IMCS, will further working on that in the future, I believe. And very good news this morning I heard from television is that in Thailand we will have the vaccine for COVID-19 by the end of the year. You are welcome for those who are interested to come to Thailand to get the vaccine. I don't know. It's just promising from television this morning.
Fantastic news.
And who else at the panel? I think we have plenty of time so far. I would like to touch a bit on how the partners looking at the Southeast Asia. I think in some countries are very strong enforcement, some countries may not, some are focusing on improving of the legal legislation frameworks and those kinds. So I think I would like to ask experience from our project implementation SEAFDEC training department. Someone can answer me. What is the progress of the SEAFDEC initiative promoting? I think Dr. Kato, you can also answer. What is, for example, the progress of implementation of the, for example, regional guidelines on preventing entry of fishery products from IUU fishing activities? We have some evaluation made last year. What is the status of the countries in the region combating IUU based on our regional initiatives? For example, the RPOA IUU, the NPOA IUU, the RPOA capacity, regional guidelines on preventing IUU fisheries products, for example. Dr. Kato, if you have any information to the attendee.
Well, we every year our Japanese government supporting project finished last year, but during course of 5 years, we checking every year the implementation of RPOA IUU to the each member states, and we had some questionnaires, and the score is increased, so improvement, but our score is almost to the highest numbers already, so we cannot distinguish the improvement from now on. So I think each country tried to implement and improved, but after this we have to change the indicators to evaluate each country's progress. And for example, some group of organization made IUU Fishing Index. We introduced during our meeting, and our evaluation is self-evaluation. We can do by ourselves. It's not a third party's evaluation, and the IUU index is other countries' index, so not the country, other organizations. So that they can look closely at each numbers, and they can study how far they are doing well. But that's index has its own characters. For example, you have a big coastline, and then that score is lower. Which means you have a lot of open water space you have to control, then automatically their score is lower. So you can look each numbers, and it's especially Western country like MCS system, and if you have those certificate in that country, and they can get a higher score. And of course, international instrument, how much they ratify those things, and that affect each country's score. So this moment we introduced those numbers, and we want all ASEAN member states to check each small indicators, and then they can look by themselves what is a weak point about combating IUU. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kato. You are mentioning that MFRDMD now having the program to evaluate the effectiveness implementation of the measures relating to combating IUU fishing in each country in the region, using our regional guideline as a platform to evaluate such a program. I think the relevant information can be provided. Dr. Matthew, if you are in the panelist with us, can you tell us what kind of FAO using for the evaluation of the IPO implementation of IPOA, International Plan of Action Combating IUU Fishing? Is there any news or information to be provided?
I think your question is just related to the implementation of the International Plan of Action to combat IUU fishing. Or
yes, yes.
Well, the International Plan of Action is one of the 5, I believe, instruments that are addressed in measuring the implementation of international instruments under SDG 14.6.1, as I presented yesterday. In the chat, I shared a link to a document, just a few pages, to explain the methodology that is used to measure the extent of implementation of the different instruments. Now, the way that is constructed, it touches upon the port, flag, coastal, and market state responsibilities, and it does not give 0 points to a country that does not, which is not a party to an agreement. If, of course, it loses points, but it also considers that perhaps that country, through some regional regulation, is already doing what the international agreement says. So it's about measuring flag, coastal, and market state responsibilities, not only looking at strictly the agreement per se. Of course, one of the fundamental things in implementing the International Plan of Action by countries is for countries to have a national plan of action. And as I said yesterday, well, we are not fully aware of which countries have completed a national plan of action. According to our records, possibly there are 9 out of 11 SEAFDEC countries which have an international plan of action, but some of them are not quite updated. Some are very recently updated, others not. And the national plan of action really is something that needs to be tailor-made for the country's situation. You know, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You cannot copy a national plan of action from one country and apply it to your own. It depends on your fisheries, on your situation, whether you are a big flag state or a small flag state or a big port state or big market state, your memberships in the RFMOs, your institutional setup, your resources, the size of your coastline. There are many different kinds of things. So the national plan of action needs to be put in place when there is an evaluation of, it is of course the fundamental policy upon which then capacity development takes place. But it's important for a national plan of action to be put in place, not just as a document to put on a shelf, but as an implementing, assisting tool for the country to move ahead. Of course, the NPOA has to be in line with what has been decided at regional level. In your case, you have a unique situation where you have an RPOA, so that is good. And of course, then what is decided at regional level has to comply with the minimum international standards, and of course the requirements that the RFMOs have. So this is how we measure that. Now, I just, if you don't mind, I'll just take the floor a bit longer to comment upon this IUU Fishing Index that was mentioned. Yes, we are well aware of this publication that was released and presented actually at the Mcs Network meeting last year. Yes, one has to be careful on how to use that, how to interpret that. We feel that it's important to underline and highlight and make in bold that it is not a measure of IUU fishing, even though you know, the publication gives this impression that it is an IUU Phishing Index. And that means that you are classifying who is good and who is bad. That index, we have been informed, is the risk. It's an IUU fishing risk. Of course, the more vessels you have, for example, the more risk there is. The bigger your coastline, the more risk there is. Yeah, the more foreign fishing vessels are coming to your port, the more risk there. So it is a measure of how risky it is for IUU fishing to take place within the context of that country. So it's not a measure of IUU fishing. The other bit of information that I should inform you about is that, you know, FAO has often been asked about how much IUU fishing is out there. We know, we keep referring to, and we see it in all presentations, this reference to a study of 2009 with this you know, $23 billion worth of fish caught from IUU activities, or 1 in 5 fish, we say, comes from IUU fish. But you know, FAO has stayed away from trying to come up with an estimate. What we are doing is developing methodology, guidance on a methodology on how one goes about measuring IUU fishing. When you're trying to measure IUU fishing, that is, for example, unreported fishing in small-scale fisheries, the approach is different to trying to estimate how much IUU fishing is taking place on the high seas through transnational organized crime. So through this, it has been a long time since we've been working on this. We have 2 publications on just general practices and the approach to how one goes about measuring IUU fishing. But now we are getting close to finalizing this publication guidance, really a practical handbook on how one goes about measuring IUU fishing. The idea is that we try to set at least some minimum standard, some minimum guidance standard, so that as many people around the world can measure IUU fishing, whether it is at national level, regional, sub-regional, international. It can be done by academics, students, organizations, but at least we follow some minimum guidance. The more of these studies are done, and the more reliable they are, the more we will have a reliable estimate of IUU fishing at global level, and we will be able to monitor what is happening. Because at the end of the day, it's not about absolute values. We may be gobsmacked by hearing the figures of 23 million, you know, it's huge. But what is a number? Because it's 23 million plus or minus, I don't remember, 20 million. So it's very, very vague. So what is important is the trend. Is it going up or going down? It may be 100 million, but if we cut it within a year to 50 million, that's a big success. So it's about trends. And the more studies we do, the better. Again, having organizations, entities in the region, in Southeast Asia, makes it easier for us to partner with you to be able to carry out some tests, some testing of this methodology that will be useful for monitoring IUU fishing.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Matthew. I think SEAFDEC will looking forward on the methodology and such initiative in the future to come up with the better understanding the activities of IUU. I think I would like to hear a bit from Dr. Kathleen, as NOAA has provided over the years to many countries, including Thailand, for example, on the capacity building, for effective implementation of PSMA. Do you have any monitoring program on what is the improvements after training program or capacity development activities assist to the countries? How the countries make use of that training, or how improvements of the countries in developing and improving their own system, or that day-to-day basis duties or responsibilities for state or whatsoever. You have any program on that? Yes, Dr. Kathleen.
Yes, thank you very much. We do. Our performance measures for our capacity building and technical assistance projects do vary in terms of the state of implementation our partner country is already at. So for example, if legal frameworks or implementing regulations are a needed step, and to ensure that the, I think Gary hit this best when he was talking about ensuring that the enforcement officers and your fisheries inspectors have the appropriate legal authorities that they need to do their job. So if these things are not in place yet, that's one of our performance measures of success, is working with technical drafting assistants, working with our general counsel, working with our prosecutors, and providing that technical drafting assistance to our partner countries. So for Thailand specifically, unfortunately, our scheduled training for earlier this year had to be postponed due to COVID-19. It was right when COVID was peaking, and the embassy started closing down and travel for US was being prohibited. So we are looking forward to taking those next steps. For other partners around the world, we do go back and we observe the inspectors after training in the field. We see how they have shared information. We move to that sustainability approach of getting to the point where we have a cadre of inspectors trained to then begin initiating instructor training. So ensuring that the countries can take over the inspector training and be able to maintain it internally. And so for Indonesia specifically, that is what we did last fall. We had our first training of the trainers events, and we've done similar work in the Philippines where we've had study tours and had participants come over to the United States. So in terms of performance metrics, it really depends on at what state, if we're talking about the Port State Measures Agreement specifically, it really depends on what state of implementation our partner country is at. And so I would like to highlight, first of all, thank the Secretariat for recapping our technical assistance trainings that we provide in your wrap-up slides, and would like to highlight that we are looking for virtual solutions and to take some aspects of our training, what we can do, into a virtual world. This is something that NOAA is working on. And even though we're unable to travel right now, we are still able to provide technical assistance remotely. We have seen different trends of how suspicious product is being moved in the SEAFDEC area specifically, and have had some partner countries reach out to us and raise these concerns and raise these new trends with us. And we've been able to provide operational fisheries law enforcement guidance and risk assessment, and how to, as I mentioned in my presentation, for those that weren't there yesterday, we always encourage our trainees to dig deeper. So start getting in that mindset of how do we start the investigations, the long-term investigations, how do we get to the beneficial ownership? So as product is being moved in the region differently, we've been able to answer a lot of those questions in terms of helping provide assistance of what to look for, setting standard operating procedures in place. So our offers to assist with case assistance and prosecutorial assistance still remains, and we're trying to maintain forward movement on all of our projects in the virtual world, despite the challenges that COVID brings. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kathleen. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I think we would like to appreciate your NOAA very kind providing assistance to many number of countries in the region, building capacity of the national authorities and officers on the implementation of the past measures. Any message from Dr. Kato? I think Dr. Matthew has mentioned that we have to collaborate, I think, and looking forward to see how to measure or how to evaluate the performance of implementation of the IUU fishing combat IUU fishing measures in our region in the future. We can harmonize, I don't know, how to evaluate implementation of measures related to combat IUU fishing in the future. If you have anything.
Yeah, I know what asking, but each country has a different issues and problems, and so I think some point we can do some measurement, and some third party can evaluate how far we go. But each countries, for example, Malaysia has a zoning system, and then they check AIS and the vessels information by themselves, and the control patrol, and then they detain the foreign vessel for illegal fishing. And so it's good now. It's 24 hours Malaysia Department of Fisheries checking movement of fishing vessel. But for example, in Indonesia, they have vast majority of islands and area. Then they decided to share the information with Global Fishing Watch. They offer the fishing vessels AIS information to Global Fishing Watch, and they help the Indonesian government to watch the movement of the vessel. So port state measured agreement, and then it's same system, and we can work together, and sharing information and the same system we try to spread in ASEAN region. That's if all country ratify, it's okay. But other issue is depends on the country, and what SEAFDEC doing, and whatever new things each member state start, and then we try to inform, and then we share the progress of those information, and each country can decide what the system is good for their country to combating IUU fishing. That's one thing. But IUU last year is unregulated. That's the hardest point, and we have to do stock assessment in this region, and SEAFDEC working on almost entire more than 50 years to try to get the better statistics of fisheries catch from each member state, and we are improving, but still, if we want to do state-of-art modern stock assessment, and then very limited region has very good fish effort data. Species, we can do better, good stock assessment in the region. So it's challenging for us to do try to do available best scientific knowledge. We have to improve our analytical power, and we always persuading all ASEAN member states to collect good fisheries statistics now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Kato. I think very interesting statements from not only from SEAFDEC but also from international organizations today. Surprisingly, today there is no question. We have 146 participants, but no questions so far. One suggestion at the question answer is that the organizer should encourage ASEAN member state to address some issues or questions by ASEAN member state. But so far, I already typed in the chat room, but nobody. Yes, before we move to next agenda arrangement, I think I would like to request our speaker in the panelist to give a last round of the what kind of a take-home message that you are would like to inform to our attendee and our panel list as well. Can I start from our far away? Natalie, can you give your take-home message to the audience?
Hello, yes, thank you. And thank you again for this wonderful teleseminar, and I look forward to future SEAFDEC seminars. So my take-home message really is one of opportunity. I think we've seen a tremendous amount of change in the Southeast Asia region over the last just few years even. And I think technology plays an important role in that. Capacity building absolutely plays an important role. And key is partnerships and collaboration. So I'd just like to end on that note and thank our partners in the region for their hard work, for their collaboration, and we look forward to continued partnerships in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. And I'm looking forward to see you next building because we are the office next building to each other. Okay.
Right, I hope I can come back soon.
Okay. Okay, next, thank you, Natalie, and hope to see you next time. Dr. Kathleen from NOAA, do you have any, I think, take-home message, please?
Yes, thank you. I would just like to follow up on Natalie's comment, just to keep re-emphasizing the need for international collaboration and cooperation and information sharing. No one country is going to be able to win the battle against IUU phishing. It takes all of us working together, both communicating within our own governments from an interagency perspective to regional to global, and there are many tools. I think the importance of highlighting a lot of the international initiatives has been very positive in this arena with the likes of the Mcs Network and of course the Fisheries Crime Working Group for Interpol. I think it's positive that fisheries historically have not always been a well-recognized a law enforcement community. In the law enforcement community, fisheries has not always been a well-known entity that participated into the intelligence communities and accepted because our missions are so narrow in terms of resource, but we offer a lot of information to provide in the maritime domain awareness, the maritime security conversations. So the growing need for fisheries inspectors and fisheries ministries and agencies to be connected to their national central bureaus, to receive information from Interpol by the submitting vessel information through the RPOA IUU network and getting that information out as quickly as possible to partners, and the strength that that brings from the communication within the region as well elsewhere. I think one thing that I forgot to mention yesterday in terms of the Port State Measures Agreement and implementation is that we're always willing, and other partners, of course, closer, Gary, New Zealand, Australia, who are a little bit closer to the region, are always interested and available to assist with investigations. And from an operational law enforcement, we always encourage getting on the vessels and collecting as much evidence as possible versus denying. Of course, if the resources aren't there, then you should definitely deny IUU fishing vessels, port entry, port access, and those things. But being able to collect as much information, these investigations, from an enforcement perspective, we always want to make the cases. And the investigations into beneficial ownership and getting to really impact the true IUU operators requires us to have the long-term goals and all working together. So every country involved is adding another layer of evidence and collecting information that when they're conducting their inspections, they may not even know it's a piece of the puzzle yet, depending on the vessel's activity. So just focusing on the needs for that long-term mindset and us all participating and working together and staying connected, both one-on-one dialogues through the global fisheries enforcement training workshops and through all the international organizations that help support the actual practitioners and enhance communications and the new tools that FAO will be bringing on board. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kathleen. Very message, very good for every one of us. And I would like to inform our SEAFDEC member countries that you will be with us tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, because we will have another session to discuss among the countries in the region on the combating IUU fishing based on the regional initiative. I have seen one question. It's not really the question. Okay. Yes. Next, I would like to invite Matthew. Any take-home message that you wish to give to all of us here before we end the teleseminar?
Yes, it's my pleasure to share with you some final thoughts and words. I think in summary, what I'd like to say is that we can focus on 4 words, all starting with the letter C. And this is commitment, strengthening commitment by states to do what is right, to fulfill their responsibilities. The second word is cooperation, cooperation to regulate, to share information, and to take action, effective action to combat IUU fishing. It's important to improve compliance. And finally, it's important also to step up to try to maximize the benefits that capacity development brings to the region. As I said yesterday, there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of support, but perhaps we need to maximize the benefits of this support by having better implementation and taking better action. So I leave you with those 4 words: commitment, cooperation, compliance, and capacity development. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Matthew. Thank you for your time. Thank you that you're joining us every day. And last but not least, we have Mr. Gary from IMCS. Please give us your take-home message.
Thank you. Look, the battle against IUU is not something we can win overnight. We can't do it alone. Together, we can make a difference. It's going to be a lengthy challenge. It's always frustrating, but everybody involved should know that they are making a difference. We are winning. I'd like to add a 5th C to Matthew's list of 4, and that's collaboratively. We work collaboratively, and that's the way we will overcome this challenge. The people, the businesses, the entities involved in IUU are working alone. Matthew referred to organised crime before. That's a rarity. Most of these people are one-off. They're small fishers or small companies. They don't have the resources that we do. If we can work collaboratively, bring the full suite of resources that we have as regulators throughout Asia, throughout the Pacific, throughout the world, bring those abilities together, we can make a difference. We are making a difference, and my congratulations to all those out there that are working hard every day to ensure sustainability. As I say, thank you and congratulations, and thank you again for the opportunity to participate.
Yes, thank you, Gary, for your take-home message and your participation to our teleseminar. Last but not least, I think I would like to give microphone to our moderator, day 1, Dr. Kato, if you have any take-home message to all of us, please.
Thank you, Dr. Warabit. And since we are MFRDMD, that means that we do fishery management. So we have we will do a best effort to our resource healthy. So we have to do resource management and many things, and we we are in the tropics, and we have limited information for biology of many species, but still we have to maintain our resources. And from FAO data, it's clear kind of capture fisheries, it's plateau now, and we cannot, probably most likely we cannot increase the amount of catch from the ocean. So we catch a little bit more, then it affects a lot to the resources most likely. So we have to inform all member states the position we are right now. We are catching okay, or we catching bit too much or something like that. So we try to do best effort to do stock assessment of fishery resources in the region. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kato. And last but not least, I think moderator day 2 yesterday, he involved in the seminar as moderator for day 2. Mr. Isela, you have any take-home message to the audience?
I shift to Mr. MC, that project manager for IUU fishing of TD first, and then I wrap up. I adding something. Thank you. Komputai, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Isla. For the TDs, as you know about the activity that conduct by TD for the ASEAN member states, we will continue to the activities such as the traceability for fishing to the pairs, as the EACDS application. Recently, we implement in Brunei Darussalam, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Vietnam. And in the future, we will expand to the other countries as the requirement from the member countries. And also the RFVR, Regional Fishing Vessel Records, which we also continue to develop and cooperation with the member country for 24 meters in length and over. For the port state measure also, in the future, maybe next year, we plan to organize the regional training course for port state measure implementation, maybe for inspectors as a requirement for member countries. For tomorrow and the next day, we will organize the tele workshop on development on improvement countermeasure to reduce IUU fishing. In these tele workshops, we will discuss with the member country for the way forward for the fishery activities as the RFVR for next step, and the needs of the member country for port state measure supporting. And also this is the activity that TD will conduct and implement through cooperation with the member country to combating IUU fishing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kun Komputai, for a very informative. To me, we SEAFDEC training department, we have project to support combating IUU fishing, as well as we have another project that can supplement, add up to support IUU fishing, such as the responsible fishing and practices, sustainable fishery resort and resort management that support the human resource development, on stock assessment that collaborate with MFRD MD Malaysia that Dr. Kato already informed. We also support our Secretariat Office on the project of the fishery statistics, that's very important for the management. I think training department still have a role to support member country to combat IUU fishing. until we can eliminate IUU fishing from this region. Thank you, Dr. Warawit, for your kind sending us opportunity to inform our member country and our audience. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Punisala, and thank you, Kongpatai. I think I would like to give some information to the audience that SEAFDEC Secretariat is planning to organize a technical webinar on fishery subsidies sometimes in 23 and 24 September. For those who are interested in to hear the issues on fishery subsidy, you are welcome. And another one is the webinar on traceability system for fish and fishery products. We are planning to have it in sometime November or December this year. Yes, I have no take-home message, but I think we should have. I should carry on the microphone to the organizer at the training department. Kun Kongpatai, please. Thank you everyone to join us today.
Thank you, Dr. Warawit, and thank you all participants to participate in our teleseminar. For the next session, I would like to invite Deputy Secretary General to kindly closing remark. Maybe our SG have something to say before closing session. Ms. Malini, please.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I believe that we have a very productive sharing and exchanging information and knowledge during these 3 days. So as the Secretary General of SEAFDEC, I can assure you that the SEAFDEC will support the member countries at our fullest capacity to combat IUU fishing in this region. However, the work could not have been done properly without cooperation with the member countries and with our partner organizations. So SEAFDEC will continue to work side by side with you in the future, and then we would like to work until we achieve our goal in sustaining our fishery resources in Southeast Asian region. Lastly, let me remind all of you who are invited to join the workshop tomorrow and on Friday that your input and contribution is crucial to develop our future plan for SEAFDEC. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Malini. And next we coming to the last section for the course section. In this occasion, I would like to invite Mr. Akito Sato, Deputy Secretary General of SEAFDEC, to kindly deliver the closing remarks. Mr. Akito, please.
Distinguished resource persons from international regional organizations and non-governmental organizations and associations, fisheries policy maker and technical officer from the ASEAN member states, my colleague from SEAFDEC Department and Secretariat, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude and appreciation to our resource persons, as well as a representative from ASEAN member states, for sharing with us the updated information and the progress of activity on combating IUU fishing at various levels. And to all participants, I would also like to thank you for taking active part in the 3-day teleseminar on the way forward for combating IUU fishing in Southeast Asia from 24 to 26 August 2020. We must recall at the first, Dr. Matthew from FAO headquarters presents the perspective on the initiative of Southeast Asia region in fulfilling the international requirement for combat IUU fishing. This was followed by the presentation of Ms. Pelucho from DG Mare, which introduced support Mcs to combat IUU fishing, ASEAN IUU network. Last but not least, Dr. Addison from Sustainable Fishery Research and Development Foundation of Thailand addressed the challenge on sustainable marine fisheries management in Southeast Asia. These presentations are indeed highly valuable, as these enable us to identify new areas and the way forward for combating IUU fishing in our region, especially for the policymaker of the Mcs. I am confident the experience, expertise, and knowledge shared with us would contribute to successful implementation of future initiatives toward sustainable fisheries management system and combat IUU fishing in our region. Then, the informative presentation from the RPOA IUU Secretariat, Ocean Mine, International Mcs Network, and NOAA, which depicts the several ongoing initiatives undertaken at various levels, such as effective tools and cooperation programs, had paved the way towards strengthening our effort in combating IUU fishing. Therefore, I'm sure the knowledge and idea gained by participants from such a presentation could be applied and utilized in your respective countries for combat IUU fishing. Finally, our resource persons and policy makers from the Mcs led the discussion on the way forward for combating IUU fishing. So, how about today's discussion and information exchange? We know there are a lot of matter to be discussed, but we have been limited by time. Nonetheless, we came up with important recommendations, and I am thankful to all of you for your contribution during the discussion and sharing the ideas. Now we have a confirmed set of recommendations on the way forward to combat IUU fishing in Southeast Asia, which are crucial for our region. We are all aware that Southeast Asia countries, for approximately a quarter of global fish production, enable the region to strongly support poverty eradication and food security of not only in the ASEAN, but also all over the world. Therefore, it is important for the ASEAN member states to take a lot of concrete action necessary to address responsible fishing practice and management, especially in combating IUU fishing activity that need enormous effort. As we know, IUU fishing has been paid attention more strongly by various sectors for environmental sustainability and sustainable economic development. Thus, effort to achieve the SDGs goal with a focus on labor and socio-economic aspects and food security and compliance with relevant international requirement or agreement have been increased or enhanced year by year. Therefore, each country is encouraged to continue the necessary action according to the relevant requirement. We therefore hope this teleseminar would serve a good opportunity for participants to think of the way forward for combat IUU fishing in Southeast Asia. In addition, technology can play an important role in promoting IUU fishing countermeasures. And we are encouraged to apply the variable new technology that are practical for each country, especially by their small-scale fisheries. This is considering the fishery sector in our region is characterized by the existence of a lot of and various kinds of small-scale fisheries playing very important role. Therefore, introduction of new technology is not so easy, but we hope this teleseminar has provided some ideas or hint to us for our future program and activities. Furthermore, being aware that international regional cooperation is effective for combating IUU fishing, SEAFDEC has been supporting the Mcs in their effort to combat IUU fishing for more than 10 years through various activities supported by Japanese Trust Fund as well as SEAFDEC Sweden and USA project. We would wish to assure you once again, SEAFDEC, together with collaborative partners and in cooperation with international regional organizations, would continue supporting the Mcs, especially in their effort to combat IUU fishing. Lastly, I would like to express my appreciation to everyone for your active contribution and look forward to enhancing the cross cooperation among relevant stakeholders, including the ASEAN member states, relevant international regional organizations, NGOs, associations, and private sector for the betterment of fisheries in Southeast Asia in the future. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Akito Sato. And also, we would like to thank, on behalf of organizers, we would like to thank you, all panelists and all participants to join with our teleseminar. And we would like to see you again in the next time. Thank you and bye-bye.